First, Diddy is not found guilty on all major sex trafficking charges, and now the DOJ and FBI state there is no Epstein's client list. Then what the fuck is this picture? What are they holding here? What is this? So there are no files, but they're posing with them and taking pictures like like they have something. I mean, do you guys remember this? Now, here's what Trump had to say about all of this.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration.
You know what I think the real tragedy is? Gaslighting the public like this. This is just the typical deny and deflect. You said you wanted to release the files. Now there's no files. I don't understand how anyone believes this. This is literally the clip on the news where she admits that she has the files.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
No,
not
I
yet.
haven't.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey.
This is ridiculous. As a part of our commitment to transparency, the DOJ and FBI have concluded an exhaustive review of the investigative holdings related to Jeffrey Epstein. To ensure that the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors. So obviously they don't want to release these videos and images because, well, they have sensitive stuff in them. There was also no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as a part of their actions. So 300 gigabytes of videos of what? Of just Epstein with these kids? There's no way. This is so stupid. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen this year. This is so stupid.
Again, logical.
I don't trust this guy at all.
If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going.
Again, logical play out. If there was a video.
This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I don't know what I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. Okay, let's look at the CoffeeZilla video. He's going over the Epstein footage, which apparently there's a whole minute missing, and it's from the wrong direction. It's not even showing his cell. It's just showing the hallway, like a little bit of the hall. This video probably explains.
Talking about the 1 minute that's missing from Jeffrey Epstein's footage. We're talking about the mystery man that appears after lockdown. Who is it? We'll try to get into it because it's not mentioned in the 2023 OIG report. The FBI Director Kash Patel went on Joe Rogan to tell everybody, you guys are crazy, and we're going to release the inside the jail cell footage proving it.
And you're going to get the video of the cell, and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
So apparently, we're going to get footage of the cell. People understandably thought this was footage of his cell. Here's what this looks like. It's CCTV footage, but this is not actually Epstein's cell, nor is this door. This is footage of a common area.
There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in. If they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
Yeah, it was in the news. It's also in the OIG's actual report. Like, the government report admits that most of the cameras were not recording. You're going to want to look at this time, and you'll see in about 3 seconds it will jump and the framing will change. So there you can see there was a cut or some kind of edited footage. And it obviously begs the question, why is there a minute missing from the FBI's like prove it tape? But also, what does this tape even prove? And they say no CO had checked on Epstein from approximately 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until 6:30 a.m. when Epstein was found. But this 10:40 p.m. is going to become extremely important because it turns out there was someone, what looks to be an inmate, out of his cell at 10:40 p.m. And the question is, who is that person? You can see this at 10:38 p.m. Remember, everyone's supposed to have been in their jail cell for 2.5 hours at this point. No prisoners. You can see a guard goes over to somewhere out of sight. We can't see it. None of the cameras were recording except for this one. And then moments later, we see a little bit of orange near the staircase. Now I'm going to have to zoom into this. It's extremely hard to see. But you can see a little pixel of orange makes its way up the staircase, right? And then
That's the important place that we want to see. And there's no camera there. Or there was a camera there, but wasn't recording. It was streaming, but it wasn't recording. How fucking convenient. And everybody, or at least Kash Patel was acting like, hey, we've got the actual footage, guys. You guys are going to see for yourselves. It's probably why he said, we can't make everyone believe it or whatever he said back there, that not everyone's going to believe it. Of course not everyone's going to fucking believe it because you don't see anything.
But then if we cross-reference that with this recent memo, we can surmise who that was. It says the FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed from the time Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 p.m.
So it was him.
On August 9th until 6:30 a.m. Nobody entered any of the tiers of the shoe. So we're supposed to believe.
So was he locked in his cell or was he sitting in his cell at 8 p.m. and then they just locked it at 10:40? So that could have been him. That orange jumpsuit that we see in the corner of that hallway could have been him.
That Epstein now is that guy, the mystery man, who's outside of his cell.
That's what they're implying.
2.5 hours after lockdown. In fact, the only thing that is mentioned is that Epstein was allowed an unmonitored phone call, which was against the rules, but he was allowed it anyways, and he returned to his cell after the call, which was at 7 p.m.
At 7:49 p.m., we're seeing Jeffrey Epstein coming back after meeting with his attorney. So he's being led to a prison cell that is approximately here. Now, we can't see it on camera, obviously, because it's cut off, but it gives us some idea of where people are walking and where he is in fact held. Now, it was reported that at 10 p.m. they were supposed to check on Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the area you're going to want to focus on is in the back, right there. This is where the correctional officers sit. This is where they do their thing. So if you're going to see movement, it's going to be in this area. And as you can see, 10 o'clock, nobody's moving right now. Now, as you can see, it's around 10:30. There's a correctional officer that's starting to move, and they ultimately are going to go check on the Jeffrey Epstein tier, as they're calling it, that area. And so what is being reported so far is pretty consistent with what we're seeing on the video. 10 o'clock, there was no check. At 10:30, it looks like there's some form of a check. So far, what we have seen, as you can see, the correctional officer just walked right there, that is so far consistent with what was reported. So one of the challenging parts about this is that one of the claims, and this is much harder to verify, is they say that nobody walked into that area again between 10:30 and 6:33 when his body was found. But as we're going to see, people do go back and forth to that general area. We don't know exactly where they walk, but there's not just no activity. Because when I had originally heard about this, when I read this back in 2019 or whenever it was originally released, I had figured that essentially you're going to see no security guards doing anything. People are just going to be sitting around, but that's really not the case. And they also talked about how the security guards were sleeping, and we're going to get into that because there's really just a small window when nobody was actually moving or that we didn't actually see anybody move. So there are still things about this that are raising questions, but let's keep going. As you can see, There is, in fact, a guard walking around right now, or at least they're standing right here. So you can see they are moving around. It's not like people are asleep right now or anything like that. There are people that are alert and awake, and they are, in fact, going to ultimately go past where the camera is to at least the general vicinity of where Epstein's being held. So as you can see right here, another correctional officer just came from that area. He's going up into this area, which I just call room 46 because that's the number on the door. It's one of those areas where you have to call to get in. He looks a little bit rushed. I don't think that's anything suspicious. Some people are just like that when it comes to opening doors that you have to call to get unlocked and that sort of thing. So right now we're getting an idea of this room because this is going to be a focus of some things later. So one of the things that's very interesting that it's claimed repeatedly throughout the timeline is that they didn't actually do any of the sweeps. They didn't actually go and do any sort of head counts or check who was where. And as you can see, the officers are actually getting up and walking around. It's 1 a.m. They're not asleep. That's one of the things that I kept reading was that they were asleep. Like I said, we're going to see a gap for about 2 hours starting now where we don't see anybody else moving around. But the fact that it's portrayed in a way that they were sleeping all night or that they weren't doing their duties, like they were awake, they were walking around. So even if they weren't doing all of the checks they were supposed to do, I think they're more active than many of us would have expected if you, in fact, read the timeline back in 2019. So it's around 1:03. This is pretty much the last time you're going to see anybody do anything for about the next 2 hours. So here we are at 3:14. You're seeing that one of them is up and about. They seem to be walking towards, ultimately going to be going towards the area where the inmates are held. That's what's so confusing about this. I guess they just went over there, signed the document or signed the chart saying that they did the head count, but then literally didn't bother looking in there. It's such strange behavior.
Because she's walking hella slow.
So it looks like she's talking to another officer down in the officer's station. So lifting the phone to get in, exactly the same as last time. Now, that little gesture right there is what I'm paying attention to. That's the thing that kind of gets me because I'm just curious what she's pointing to. Now, I don't know what's in this room right here, but I do know that Jeffrey Epstein's cell, based on the way everything looks, is pretty similar to the direction she's pointing. Now, I don't want to imply that she's done anything wrong, but it's just peculiar. It's one of those things that I hope that the DOJ, when they review...
See what direction she's pointing
room.
Well, it looks like, she's pointing to one of these doors here. It doesn't look like she's pointing, because she would have pointed into that hallway, I would think. She wouldn't walk up there and then be like, oh, check his cell. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. We'll see what this guy has to say.
Now, in the context of what they're talking about, maybe they were talking about going to the bathroom or something. Who knows? It could be anything that she was pointing to. But it's curious, given that Jeffrey Epstein's cell is, in fact, that direction. And it's a little more curious what she does afterward. Just keep watching. So she's talking to this person.
Points in that direction.
Points that direction, which, if I understand right, is approximately where his cell is. Not that she's not pointing to the room that she's getting.
It's down that hallway. Like we saw the magic mystery person in the orange jumpsuit there.
Ready to go into. Then
it could be pointing towards this direction. It could be, her implying that something happened over there or whatever.
Afterward.
Who knows?
Looks up at the camera. And then looks back at the camera again, which I think is a little bit odd. And here we are around 6:31. This is towards the end of the footage. Apparently, it was at 6:33 that the body was in fact found. And as you can see, the guards are moving around as you would expect. An alarm gets set off. Obviously, you can't hear it because of the nature of what this is. There is no sound to this, but you can see people scrambling around. There's not a whole lot more detail. But at this point, you're essentially seeing that this is the end point where they, in fact, found Jeffrey Epstein. I'll show you. I'm going to fast forward for 1 second. But as you can see, they're all scrambling right over here, which means that this area is approximately where Jeffrey Epstein's cell was, to give you some frame of reference for everything we looked at today.
Let's look at some comments. There wasn't footage, now there's footage. There's a list, now there's no list. What did I say? I'm telling you, they're just gaslighting the public. I do software engineering and make DVR and VR software. Visual software simply does not skip a whole minute, and then the video frame literally shrinks and shifts by 20 or so pixels. Security software is never programmed to skip a whole minute, shrinks and shifts picture frames in a video recording, and serves no meaningful purpose and was obviously edited. Whoever tasked in editing the video clearly has no clue what they were doing to cover things up. Interesting. This is some weird stuff, but this is definitely a cover-up. There's something really weird about this, and there's something even weirder about backtracking and saying that none of the client lists, like the client list itself doesn't exist, and he wasn't blackmailing anybody. I think that that's a ridiculous claim to make, and I think it's completely false. But what do you guys think?